involvement in the video begins really when I write the music, and how I involve other people is when they listen to the music, and then they go away and they start to conjure up imagery to go with the music.
We talked about shooting at exterior and in flights and at night, and trying to create something a little bit magical by lighting at night and moving lights and things like that. And then I vanished off on holiday. I didn't come back for 4 or 5 weeks, and in the meantime the weather had got the better of us, and it was decided that we should move it indoors and construct the whole thing as sets. And fortunately for us, Rob came up with this idea of Maxfield Parrish and using his paintings as references to the film.
Certain Maxfield Parrish pictures came to mind, and with researching that we came across a couple of fairy tale books from, I think, 1902 with illustrations in them, and we used some of these illustrations as the basis for all of the sets that we have in the video, and the idea sort of came from lots of people talking through how we could link these up to the musical interludes of the song.
Quiet everywhere. We'll play back. Turn over camera.
There's so much work done as far as the painting and the glasswork and everything like this, so it's so fascinating to watch it all come to life.
We'd established a sort of super wide of the scene, and the little boy in relation to the bakers and in relation to the size of the screen was too small, and it just didn't feel like to me that we were telling the story. So I really needed to move in and find a wide shot with a boy with slightly larger scale so we could capture all his action. I asked him to zoom in, and of course the relation between the camera and the glass and the action all goes out the window, so Tony had to repaint in the stats and bring the foliage back into the set, which he did brilliantly again. It was very, very great.
I suppose the painting of the chocolate factory really is the most challenging and the most obvious one to put on glass, because you can never build it. It would take a sort of 100-foot high studio and 20,000, 40,000 pounds just to the steps alone. Tony Common has been a tower strength throughout the whole thing. I mean, he came in and he's been calm, and when we kind of panicked, he said, no, we can do that, we can achieve that. Glass painting is really just placing a piece of glass in front of the camera and painting through the camera and extending the painting to elaborate the sets, to glorify them. So there's no limitations at all really on what you can put into a studio. The most difficult thing about glass mats is matching the realism to the painting, but you need a good lighting cameraman to help you really there.
Oliver has been an absolute joy. I don't think I've ever come across a 9-year-old child with that depth of concentration. We're halfway through the second day now, and the first day he concentrated for hours and hours and hours. And he took direction brilliantly, and once we got to know each other, we had to set up a relationship from very early in the morning. And once that was done, we were fine, and we were a team, and he responded very well indeed.
I auditioned for it first, and when I came out, I said to myself, I'm not going to get this. But then the next Amanda, I don't know her name, she phoned up and said that I had got it and was so surprised.
Oliver was great. He had an amazing attention span. He could concentrate on things for a great period of time. And once you'd given him his 2, 3, 4 pieces of action throughout the shot, he would just keep repeating them again and again.
I'm a sort of a normal boy, and then someone calls out my name, and then I just climb up this ladder into this sort of fantasy world that I go into. And there's just lots of things that I haven't seen before.
I got involved in this production when Cherry, the choreographer, and Rob from Warner were watching a performance at the Opera House, Covent Garden, and I was dancing Hobson's Choice. And the next day I had a phone call asking if I would do this video. I'm playing 3 characters. The first one, a butterfly catcher. The second is a man in the moon. And the third is an eccentric photographer.
What I'm aiming for with the dancing is non-dancing. It's that tricky line where you want everybody to look as natural as possible, but it's all got to be worked out to the nth degree. And when you've got the dancers, well, especially Vincent, who is of the most extraordinary quality, they just almost just have to be there.
The primary difficulty is that you run out of time. You don't have enough time to construct 3 glass shots in over 2 days, plus all the cutaways and close-ups, etc., etc.
Maxwell Parrish has been one of my biggest influences as a painter, and I'm forever sort of trying to bring his pictures alive.
We originally planned to do 2 glass shots, and I dialed in a 3rd glass shot for our outro sequence, and he knocked that up on the sort of 3rd day, and he's just such a professional. They're just so great to work with.
A bit more C, standing by, ready Rick? And 1, please. We'll play back.
Basically we're turning reality into fantasy here, I think. The process that we did was we took all the live action, which was offlined and then neg cut, and then we turned it into photorotoscopes, which is what these photographs are called. Printed every 3rd frame, which are all pin registered, so the animation is in register, and then we're actually just rendering on top with oil castles, lots of smudging, enhancing areas, knocking back different areas, making it more sort of magical and golden. If you do it on the print, it means we've only got 1 chance of getting it right. Doing it on cells means you can also flip it to check what you're working on underneath. It just makes it easier, really. So you can see what the picture's like underneath, and then you can see how much you've enhanced it. Because we're planning things like the greens, we're making more orangey and yellow, And again, just highlighting certain areas, highlighting around the central characters and then knocking areas like this back, just picking up things like leaves, maybe pinking up here, something along. We're doing every third frame, and we're mixing through from frame to frame. So what that means is that you get the picture before, the frame before and the frame after actually coming through. So it's much softer. Instead of getting that kind of jerkiness that you get. All the bits that are just live action, the beginning basically is untreated. As soon as he climbs into the painting and he becomes affected by the painting, then everything has rendering on it. Oh, we've got about 10 people. You can't have too many because you lose the actual style of things. I'm trying to keep it so that the same person works on a batch, because everyone has a slightly different way of doing it. I mean, the overall effect is the same, but you know, if there are scenes where there are quite a few shots where the little boy is by the tree, so I'm just doing those myself so that they'll do the same. But basically we're doing models for each scene so that it can be followed through pretty consistently.